difference. So my man, you ain't voting for Kamala Harris.
Not at all.
Is it because you're afraid of a strong black woman?
Not at all.
Is it because you hate your mama?
Not at all.
Is it because you want $1,000 stimulus check?
Not at all.
Then why you voting for Donald Trump?
Man, because we gonna make America great again.
The liberals on The View are going crazy over Janet Jackson's revelation that Vice President Kamala Harris isn't black. And the same goes for many Democrats who are offended by what she said. But in all honesty, she's only identified herself as black during this election. Now, if you go back to years of her running for office, she's always been proud of her Indian roots, which explains why people like Janet Jackson are so confused. It's not like she watches the news or politics for that matter, but from her brief exposure to it, she concluded her own opinion. And this is her right as an American citizen. But look at how the left has now weaponized mainstream media and their so-called pundits to do their dirty work. And guys, before we get started, just want to thank y'all for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel and sharing these videos. Let's get started.
The very thing that I tell y'all all the time just happened with Janet Jackson. Let's catch it and talk about it while it's fresh. So Janet Jackson was asked in an interview about Kamala Harris and her presidential ambitions. And she basically said, from what I hear, she's not even black, which is literally her right, her prerogative to say what she believes or what she heard. No offense intended. So guess what happens? They send one of the Hivies, one of the Democrat shields, out of the hive to attack her, which is something that I said happens every time a black person is critical in some type of way about any person that's a Democratic policy, plan, or vision. Guess who it was? It wasn't Roland Martin this time. They sent out D.L. Hughley, and we know what the D.L. stands for. And this is what he had to say. Janet Jackson's interview sounded like a Trump rally. FYI, it's a little ironic to question whether someone is black while you're breathing through the nose of a white woman. I can't believe that he just disrespected Janet like that. He goes further and says, Kamala Harris looks the way she does because she has a mom from India and a dad from Jamaica. Janet Jackson looks the way she does because she has a plastic surgeon. Now remember, these cats, these Democratic liberal men are always talking about women's rights and respecting women. But look how D.L. Hughley blatantly disrespects Janet Jackson. He goes on further to say, all I know is Kamala looks like she did when she was in Oakland. But Janet don't look like she did when she was Penny. What the hell was in that iron? I could say so many things about DL, but I can't say it on this app. So I'm going to say it like this, bro. I'm with her.
Now, there's a lot to unravel with Kamala Harris and her alleged roots, but let's go ahead and stick to the facts here, shall we? None of us have definitive proof which shows her ancestry to be connected to African Americans. In fact, what we do know is that her mother is Indian and that her father is Jamaican. Further than that, Donald Harris, her dad, revealed that it is possible that they descended from Hamilton Brown. Now, Hamilton Brown was known as an Irish slave owner. I guess this kind of explains why Kamala won't even talk about her own father and merely sticks to inspirational stories about her mom. But this is not a good look given that she's based her entire identity of being black on her father. Because if he himself doesn't claim to have an African ancestry, then how the heck can Harris be so sure? Now, we can't say for certain that all of this is 100% correct, but we are going by the facts of the story and what has been said by her own family members. And yet, Kamala Harris is going out on all these rallies and doing all these different black accents.
I love you back. Thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. Hello to all my divine nine brothers and sisters. And my sorors. And to all my HBCU brothers and sisters. And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Do any of you guys find that offensive? Because some say that she's mocking these accents. That's not how she talks, but she's desperate to play the character that's relatable to black folks, or as she sees it. And she's doing it plainly for votes. Did you ever see her do that as a senator or as a prosecutor? She's doing it now because she's running for president. And black women like Janet Jackson are not falling for it. In fact, she's not apologizing to the vice president, which has liberal mainstream media in a frenzy to try and attack the pop star. And a supposed representative apologized for Janet Jackson, something that she's also refused to acknowledge given that this person is not a part of her team. But I want you guys to look at how The View twisted this story and made it about Donald Trump, even though Janet Jackson never even mentioned Trump's name.
We don't know what she said because it's been one thing and another. Look, I think Janet Jackson, like every other American, whether you're a celebrity or not, has a right to endorse, support, or not support whomever they want. So she's got every right to not like Kamala Harris if she doesn't want to.
But that's not what she said.
What she doesn't know, what she did was spread misinformation. And I think it's very irresponsible when you have a platform the way Janet Jackson does to use that platform carelessly to spread misinformation based on a racist allegation by Donald Trump, right? It was Donald Trump who tried to say Kamala Harris just turned black.
Now, I think liberal media has a sign in their dressing room that just says, whatever happens, blame it on Trump. It's kind of like they're committed to pulling him into all these different conversations just to try to make the guy look bad. We got to make Donald Trump the bad guy. That's what they're all being told to do. But the problem is that even those within the black community aren't all that convinced that Kamala Harris is even black. And Janet Jackson is involved in these conversations where she herself is not convinced that Kamala Harris is what she says she is. I'm not sure why they don't get this and why they feel as if they need to blame Donald Trump for everything. Although I get that they want voters to think Trump's a racist.
Why do they like you better than any other Republican in modern time?
Well, you have to ask the other Republicans.
I'm just saying, you see black support going up with you, Hispanic, young people. Like I said, the people look more like me than you, and they say you're different. Why?
Because I did things in office that nobody else has done. Criminal justice reform. I did criminal justice reform at a level that nobody thought was possible to get. And I did that largely for the black and Hispanic community. They're the ones that wanted it. Opportunity zones with Tim Scott. And he was so much in favor of it. And it's probably maybe the best economic development package ever for African Americans, for Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans. We did a lot of things that people couldn't believe we were able to get done.
They also want to set this narrative that voting for Kamala Harris would give us the first black woman president. And yet they demonize anyone who goes against their set of norms. We could see it clearly with Janet Jackson. Now, I expect that her camp will probably give in to the pressure and that she'll release an apology straight out of ChatGPT, but only because she has to, not because she wants to. And it's because of the culture now that values being the first at anything, because they also want to be able to report that Kamala Harris is again possibly the first black woman president. But if you were to ask them, is she even the right fit for the job? Then you would be considered a racist or sexist. Maybe even both. Well, guys, the great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, you know, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh, God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you know, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. I mean, but this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I mean, I'm now at a point where, you know, like, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like-minded people. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. And so, guys, this is what we're dealing with right now. And I think it becomes very simple when you put it this way. If you're going to vote with your wallet in mind. It's as simple as that. Much simpler than asking the vice president what she plans on doing for the economy. There's a reason as to why they hid Kamala Harris for more than a month after being handpicked by her party. There's a logic to this, guys. Kamala Harris is not fit for speaking engagements where she doesn't have a script. You can cite the debate all you want, but we know for certain that she was prepared for that ABC debate. We can say that because all of her answers from then are still being repeated today, much like what she and Tim Walz continue to tout about their plan for the economy. They keep circling back to their middle class life when that doesn't even answer the question at all. Don't take my word for it, just watch this.
So I was raised as a middle class kid.
I grew up a middle class kid.
I grew up a middle class kid. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people.
You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams.
The ambition, the aspiration, the dream. I started my career as a prosecutor.
I was a career prosecutor for most of my career.
Having a background as a prosecutor, I intend to create an opportunity economy.
Developing and creating an opportunity economy.
What I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy.
And I want you guys to watch the body language here as Harris finished up her interview at the NABJ. Do you see the looks being shared here? And the VP doesn't even have the decency to look at the crowd before exiting. She just kind of waves them off because she knows that she bombed again.
New polling is in today on the swing states from the Hill and from Emerson College. We'll get to the average point in a moment, but all of these polls right here, this is one poll, but all of these polls in the swing states, every single one of them is within the margin of error. Look, 48, 49, 50, 47, 49, 47. So it's as close as can be. What's interesting, if you take out the leans and just look at which direction that they're going, Trump, Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and also Pennsylvania has the slightest of advantages where Harris is up in Michigan. North Carolina, Nevada's just completely tied. Now, if you focus on the big three so-called blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, we've had a decent amount of data come in since the debate in those states. And it's close, very, very close.
And it is this fact that is pulling down her numbers in the polls. They hid her for way too long, and now everybody's waiting on her words. The problem is that it's been disappointing for many voters, especially independent voters who are still choosing between her and Donald Trump. Now, it's also very evident that mainstream media is shocked that Kamala Harris doesn't have as much support. I'm not shocked, though. I mean, she's been shown to have rallies with thousands of supporters, and yet it's hard to find one organically. Check out what CBS News said about finding supporters for the VP.
We had so much fun, but what was really incredible is in every single restaurant of the people willing to talk to us, we could only find one Harris supporter in every restaurant, and we left no stone unturned. I approached every single person.
I believe that she would have gotten a better number if she notified Harris's team so that they could have bussed in more of a crowd. But it's this unpopularity that's being highlighted at the moment. A Rasmussen survey shows much of the same voters are connecting Harris to the poor performance of President Biden. And it makes sense because she's already in the White House, guys. The numbers show that more than half of voters feel as if Kamala Harris will offer more of the same, with less than 40% seeing her as a fresh start and a new direction. Now, what's really surprising for those at Rasmussen is that more than half of the respondents claim that Donald Trump is the fresh new start that they need. Now, remember, guys, this guy has already been in the office. He's already held the White House for 4 years, and yet voters are saying that he is the one who can take this country into a new direction. It doesn't end there, because a whopping 73% of them say that the general conditions in our country is calling for a fresh start and a new direction. Top pollster John McLaughlin, he also also confirmed that the race is tight, despite what you and I hear from mainstream media, mainly because what we hear has Harris absolutely leading Trump everywhere. But what they're not telling us is that 60% of voters are worried about the nation going down the wrong track. Of those voters, 78% believe that Kamala Harris will continue this trend. Not looking good for Harris. 74% believe that Trump will instead steer us away from it. Very good news for Trump. Now, I should also note that the numbers show that Kamala Harris is in for a steep drop in the polls, especially as she has no choice but to continue to hold interviews where she's left to answer off the cuff. Those never work out well for her, and it's for this reason.
Did you vote? Are you gonna vote? White House runs right through this state. So listen, let me tell you, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. The path to the White House goes through Wisconsin. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. 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 Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who scammed consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say. So hear me, Detroit, when I say. So hear me when I say. I know Donald Trump's type. 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 And are we ready to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? Are we ready to fight for it? And are we willing to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? When we fight, when we fight, when we fight, when we fight, and when we fight, and when we fight, we win! God bless you!
And many wonder why she's not giving out interviews left and right with the presidential election just within reach. This is the reason for that. It is also why they're hiring people like Oprah Winfrey to go ahead and coddle her in the interview. Now, I'm not really sure if you can call this an interview because she kept getting these softball questions, but the level of desperation is proven because they're begging Oprah Winfrey to come in and kind of bail her out. What's bad for her campaign is that she strikes out with the majority of questions that people want answers to.
Madam Vice President, we are, like many, many young Americans, just experiencing a very high cost of living. We ended up giving up our apartment, moving in with our parents who were so gracious to take us in for over a year so that we could save money and ultimately buy a home, because that's what we thought the American dream was, to get married and buy a home and have a baby. And now here we are, and our mortgage is incredibly higher than what we thought it would be. And my sister and our brother-in-law are living with us right now so that they can hopefully one day do the same. And while it's beneficial for us because they help us pay off some of our mortgage, it's also beneficial for them because they can save on cheaper rent. But we really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family, and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries. So that's why I'm taking on, for example, price gouging, which is when, most companies and corporations are good, but for those bad ones, they take advantage of people, especially during a pandemic or extreme weather, And they end up jacking up prices, and there needs to be accountability and consequence for that. So I'm going to be taking on price gouging.
And I just want to kind of remind you guys the question. It was, what is your plan to help lower the cost of living? Do any of you guys believe that she answered it at all within this word salad somewhere, somehow? Because she goes on and on talking about her mom, how her mom saved up money to buy their home, and how she grew up on top of a child care center. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And it leaves voters with their mouths wide open, like asking themselves, what the heck is she talking about? And it's got so bad that Oprah Winfrey literally had to cut her off just to get her back on track. Hey, come on. Come on back here. Oh my God. It's like Joe Biden freezing up on stage and Obama guiding him down. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a part of this clip first, because we really need to start with the question.
When you become president, what would be your specific steps? Yeah, of course. What would be specific steps to strengthening the border?
So it's a wonderful and important question. You know, my background was as a prosecutor, and I was also the elected attorney general for 2 terms of a border state. So this is not a theoretical issue for me. This is something I've actually worked on. Okay. I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I take very seriously the importance of having a secure border and ensuring the safety of the American people.
Now, she goes on for like a 3-minute discussion of how Donald Trump is at fault for what's happening at the border. I don't even understand how that's even remotely possible. I could play you the video, but it's just so strangely distant from the question that it's not even worth your time. She went so freaking off topic that this is what Oprah had to do.
Is it about you, or is it about the people?
Right.
Is it about running on problems or fixing problems? My work and my career has always been about saying, let's fix problems. Let's address the needs, because we know it's within our capacity to do that.
So to answer Justin's question, now that that bill has gone and hasn't passed, will you reintroduce that?
Absolutely. And when I am elected president of the United States, I will make sure that bill gets to my desk and I will sign it into law.
You remember how Dana Bash gave Kamala Harris multiple choice questions during the interview? This beats that by a mile, because Oprah Winfrey, she heard enough and she literally just had to step in. It's not a philosophical query, Kamala. Just answer the freaking question. And notice the difference in how she's treated. She's being guided as she speaks because she goes off on these weird tangents. I think she forgets where she is half the time, honestly. It's like she's focused on sounding smart when in reality, she's just making herself look more and more like a fool. And that guy was standing up for more than like 3 minutes straight. Do any of you guys think that his question was answered? It's also ironic to have everyday Americans asking these 2 questions about the cost of living and the border when they aren't even affected by it at all. Oprah's a billionaire. Kamala Harris wants to keep the borders open. These are not secrets to many of us. I read a book a long time ago, and it basically said something that was really powerful and profound to me. And it said something along the lines of, look at your 5 closest friends, and typically your income is an average of your 5 closest friends. Now, with that being said, I was kind of like thinking, okay, well, how do I find people who made way more than me so I could increase my chances of having a higher income? I mean, it only made sense, right? For less than a cup of coffee a day, for less than $1 a day, join a powerful network of people who are ready to change their lives for the better. And I will be putting a limit on this group, so get in while you can. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now.
The devil's bargain. That's the focus of tonight's angle. I want you to ignore most of the commentary you've heard from the pundit class on the debate last night. As usual, the talking heads misread the concerns of millions of Americans watching at home. Tonight, I'm going to give you the key takeaways from the debate. First, ABC's moderators were essentially acting as Kamala Harris's debate coaches. Time and again, they served up softballs with 0 follow-ups.
Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. What would you do to fight climate change?
A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
You're great. Do you agree you're great? Now, this was entirely predictable. Now, remember, a top exec at Disney, whose portfolio includes ABC News, is a longtime pal of Kamala Harris. But another key point, and I think very, very important, is that Vice President Harris showed us last night that she's really not a lot more than a puppet of the failed D.C. establishment. Now, she took weeks to rehearse, during which she said had no adversarial press interviews, and then, with a friendly panel, showed that she can memorize some lines and speak in platitudes. From the start, Harris knew she would not be fact-checked or asked real follow-up questions. But still, even with her absurd ABC running mates helping her, Harris revealed a lot about herself. And the picture was not altogether positive. Regular Americans who